Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs. We are on day number 334 of the war with Gaza, 333 with the war with Lebanon, and 300 and something with the war with the Houthis, all obviously governed, guided, and run by the Iranians, operating their proxies, creating that ring of fire around Israel. There isn't much to update on the Gaza front. The IDF forces are continuing to operate there, still looking for more of the hostages, still trying to take out and eliminate as many terrorists as possible. In the south, the Houthis are continuing on with their aggression. There's now, as we've reported already, the Greek flagship carrying 150,000 tons of crude oil that was hit by the Houthis a few days ago is now appearing to leak that oil into the Red Sea, and salvage plans, attempts to tow the boat to safety seem to be failing. In Judea and Samaria, the terrorists are continuing on with all of their efforts. Car bombs, suicide bombers, all being run by Zair Jabarin, the new Hamas person in charge of Hamas in Judea and Samaria, really trying to already stamp his really approval of terror, trying to show who's the biggest terrorist on the block, and trying to carry out terrorist attacks that weren't carried out for a very long time, and we haven't seen for a very long time. But what we're going to focus on today is the north, is Hezbollah, is Lebanon, what's going on in Lebanon. So to give a little bit of a brief introduction, we all saw the assassination of Fuad Shukar, really Hezbollah's chief of staff, just about over a month ago. And since then, Hezbollah was planning this bigger, more drastic response. It was meant to be carried out last week and then was preempted by Israel, destroying thousands of rockets that were aimed by Hezbollah against Israel in really that surprise attack against them. Since then, Hezbollah is having a little bit of a difficulty recuperating, regaining its momentum, but it is regaining its momentum. Just hours before we started this broadcast, a barrage of 65 rockets being shot by Hezbollah, by the terrorists there, into Israel's north, some direct hits on houses in Kiryat Shmona, and really that havoc, that war of attrition there is carrying on. But what we're going to discuss today with our guest, Colonel in the Reserves, Dr. Jacques Neriah, a once advisor to Prime Minister, then Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, and someone who really does know this entire system and framework very from its inside out, it can be said, is to discuss what's going on in Lebanon. At the moment, there seems to be somewhat of maybe signs of a power struggle within Lebanon. Hezbollah trying to stamp their authority on the entire country, and some of the non-Shiite, non-Muslim population trying to regain some of that, some of the influence that they should have, could have, and that's causing that internal friction. Lebanon is a failed country. They have no electricity. The whole country works on basically on individual personal generators. They can't pay their debts, but Hezbollah has enough money to, as we saw from the videos, the promotional propaganda videos that they put out, to dig an entire tunnel system similar to that we've seen in Gaza, underneath Lebanon, linking the east to the west, the north to the south, and really a massive infrastructure project that was funded by the Iranians and Hezbollah. So, Jacques, thank you for joining us today. For those of you that don't follow our website closely enough, I must say, Jacques just recently published an article on what's going on in Lebanon, and really the friction between the Shiites, the Muslims. Shiites is only one section of the Muslims, but we'll put them together, the Shiites and the Muslims and the Christians. That's always been a very delicate balance in Lebanon, Jacques. Give us a bit of an update as to what's going on there, the history behind it, which is, I think, no less important for our audience to understand really the importance of what's going on now, the changes that Lebanon has gone through.
Well, you began by saying that Lebanon is a failed state. Well, I would rather begin and say this is an artificial state that was set up by the French in 1920, because before that, Mount Lebanon was in fact an autonomous area. And to the Christian camp at the time, the patriarch asked the French at the Versailles Conference to add areas to Lebanon to make it more viable. So they added the area in the north, Tripoli, and the area which was part of Syria, and they added the south, which was part of northern Palestine and part of southern Syria. So we had a transformation at the time, because from Mount Lebanon, where the Christian, the Maronites in majority were 95% of the population, they suddenly turned to be almost the 55%, even less than that, but still they retained power. And according to a formula that was set in 1943, just the day of independence in Lebanon, the positions, the cake was divided between the Sunnis and the Christians, and leaving crumbles to the Shiites, which were considered to be underdeveloped, retarded people. And so the president was to be a Maronite. The president of the speaker of the parliament was to be a Shiite. The prime minister was to be a Sunni, and etc., etc. And for each six Christian parliament members, you had five Muslims. Now, this has changed after the war of the civil war in 1975. The Muslims did not accept this repartition of power, and they tried first in 1958. They did not succeed, and in 1975, along a 15-year civil war, finally they reached a new arrangement in 1990, whereas the Maronite retained the position of the president and the chief of the army, the commander of the army, but on the parliamentary front, it was complete parity between Muslims and Christians. And this was, 1990, and this was accepted at the time, even though the Muslims thought that this was not correct. They should have had a bigger part of the cake. And this is exactly the seeds of what's going on today. We are very much busy with the war, with the Hezbollah, which was happening on our seven fronts. Where in Lebanon, there are undercurrents that are very, very, very powerful undercurrents who are shaping the Lebanon into a new Lebanon that we are not going to recognize. And this stems from the fact that for the last 10 months, a growing tension has been building between the Christian camp and Hezbollah. Why is that? Because the Christians are not agreeing with the policy of Hezbollah of dragging Lebanon into war. Basically, they say, you didn't ask our opinion, you didn't ask us what we think about it. Why should we participate in a war when we don't have any common border with Gaza? We suffer from the Palestinian presence in Lebanon. We have enough problems with the Syrian refugees. Out of every 1 of 5 citizens in Lebanon is a Syrian refugee, so we don't need this war, and certainly if Israel is going to attack us. So at the beginning, the criticism was very low, but then it got higher and higher till a point where Hassan Nasrallah, the Secretary General of Hezbollah, had to discuss the reality and say very bluntly that they should care of their own business instead of giving him advices concerning the war with Israel, and that he would continue to do whatever he wants and whatever he thinks to be just in the front of support of Hamas. And if they don't like it, well, Hezbollah just pushed one of its journalists who wrote an article in Al-Akhbar saying to the Christian gentleman, you are no more 33 or 35% of the population in Lebanon. You are less than 15%. And meaning that this was a clear signal that was sent to the Christians saying that we, the Shiites, are not accepting anymore the arrangement that was reached in 1990. We want a new repetition of power in Lebanon. And the goal is, according to Hassan Nasrallah, famous speech in 1985, to transform Lebanon into the 32nd province of Iran, of the Islamic Republic. This is his dream, this is his vision, and this is what he wants to reach at the end of the day. Lebanon will be a Muslim state. This is the essence of what's happening today. And this is being felt by the Christian camp. Well, the most vocal critic of what's happening with the Hezbollah is Samir Jarja, the head of the Lebanese Forces Party, and today the majority party in the Christian camp, because the strategic ally of Hassan Nasrallah, Gibran Bassil, the son-in-law of Michel Aoun, the president that ended his mandate in October 22, is no more the majority party in the parliament, and he was the strategic ally. Even though Christians, he was the strategic ally of Hezbollah in the parliament. And today, 4 of his members just deserted him and transformed, in fact, the Lebanese forces into the major camp, the major party in the Christian camp. As such, the Christians are saying, you want to change the regime in Lebanon? Okay, we want to. If you want to change the regime in Lebanon, we want to establish a federal regime in Lebanon, whereas the Christians would be in a canton, a specific canton. I mean, more or less the example of what's going on in Switzerland and other countries in the world. Even though we know that the sectarian division of power. Look at what's happening in Belgium and other places. I mean, it leads to paralysis. But this is what's going on. This is, in fact, the big war today on shaping the face of Lebanon. And this is something that we are not aware of because we are busy with Hezbollah on the ground. We are busy with the reading about the economic crisis in Lebanon, the fact that 95% of the population is under the poverty line because you have to pay a kilowatt of electricity is 35 cents, which is double the price of what what an Israeli is paying, and look at the difference of revenue. So I mean, this is a huge bill. It's an impossible bill. I mean, you talk about generators, and they have solar panels now that they are running after the sun. But basically, there is a huge problem, and this problem has been illustrated only yesterday by the arrest of the former governor of the Bank of Lebanon, Riyad Salameh, who embezzled the treasury with more than $250 million. He has about 30 apartments in Paris. He has in Spain and other places all over the world. And this guy stayed for 30 years and was in fact the most declared expression of corruption in Lebanon. So basically, Lebanon is fighting for. Sorry, yes, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Maurice.
To which camp did Salameh belong? To Hezbollah or to the Christian side?
Well, the Riyad Salameh was in the money camp. I will give you an idea. In 2019, the government, I mean, because of the economic crisis, decided that no money would be flown outside Lebanon. And it was in October 2019. And imagine, in less than 3 months, $6 billion flew from Lebanon outside the state to the different havens all over the state. And who was the orchestra the manager? It was Riyad Salameh. Riyad Salameh got to Paris on a special plane and landed in Le Bourget airport, the very special small airport for VIP people, and he had on his in his bag 90,000 euro. They asked him, why do you need 90,000 euros? He said, well, I'm busy with giving some money to people here and charities. This is the guy that you're talking to. He had corrupted every single politician, Christian, Muslim, Sunni or Shiite, Druze, whatever. He was the man. 30 years in his position, and 30 years he has shaped the economic policy of Lebanon, the disaster. He was the one who created the Ponzi scheme in Lebanon, where the money flew into Lebanon at huge interest. You could get almost 50% interest on your money in banks in Lebanon, as long as this money was coming into Lebanon. The problem was that in 2011, Hezbollah was asked by Iran to join, to help or to assist the Syrian regime. And the Syrian regime was fighting for survival, and he was fighting Islamic factions, which were all supported by either Qatar or by Saudi Arabia. So suddenly Saudi Arabia found itself fighting Hezbollah in Syria. So they said, if we are fighting with Hezbollah, why should we keep our money in Lebanon? So they began withdrawing their money from the banks in Lebanon, and thus there was no fresh money coming in. You could no more pay interest, and suddenly the economic marasm was established. And people till today cannot take their money out of their bank accounts. So this is a crazy situation. The only money that is allowed, I mean, the only foreign currencies is allowed in Lebanon is money that comes from the Lebanese diaspora from outside. Every year you have $8 billion coming into the country. Without that, the country would have been eliminated long ago.
It's incredible. What you're describing is a country that is entirely failed. The banking system has collapsed. The electoral system has collapsed. They haven't had a president there now for almost 2 years since Michel Aoun finished his term in government. And yet you have this a drive of Hezbollah against the will of at least some of the population, starting a war with Israel that let's be honest, Jacques, that it can't win, that the damage that will be caused to Lebanon by Israel is I would say 5, if not 10 times the damage that Hezbollah can cause to Israel. And yet, as I said in the introduction, they had 6,000 rockets ready to be launched against Israel just a week ago. Just this afternoon, they're firing another 65 rockets. Does Hezbollah not care what happens to to Lebanon, to the Lebanese population? I mean, we've discussed this before, and there seemed to be some type of an understanding that Hezbollah nonetheless does have to be concerned or worried about what the man on the street in Lebanon thinks, and yet it seems that they're going against that basic dictate.
Well, as you said, I mean, so rightly, we have to remember what is Hezbollah. What's Hezbollah? Hezbollah is not a Lebanese organization. It's not a Lebanese movement. It's a movement that was founded by Iran. Iranians founded in 1982 Hezbollah with Lebanese people. I mean, this is an Iranian movement that speaks Lebanese, and it obeys Iran instructions and everything. So Iran shapes the organization, builds it, finances it, and today Hezbollah is in fact has an audience. that is subject to his power. They have hospitals, they have schools, they have clinics, they have banks, they have supermarkets, they have everything they need. And if you need money, you can go to the bank of Hezbollah and get $5,000 as a loan with no interest. So who doesn't want to be the part of this organization? So the Hezbollah is in fact is leading and controlling the whole Shiite population, which is almost 40% of the population in Lebanon. So you cannot expect from those people who receive all those advantages from those fringes from Hezbollah to be against Hezbollah. The only thing that happens is that because of what's happening in the south, most of the inhabitants of the south, 120,000 have fled the south and have for safe havens in Tyre, in Sidon, in Beirut. And even though when we were talking about a response of Israel to the actual failure of Hezbollah attacking Israel, the people of the Dahia, Shiites living in the Dahia, went to the east, to the eastern part of Beirut, the Christian part of Beirut, and just rent their houses, apartments, and fled the area of the Dahia. They cannot express themselves. All those who criticize Hezbollah find themselves with 6 holes in their head. Remember Mohsen Slim, one of the major journalists who was a critic of Hezbollah, was found dead in his car. Everyone who speaks against Hezbollah that doesn't last long. I mean, his life is automatically shortened by Hezbollah, by Hezbollah hitman. So this is a reign of terror, and if we want it or we don't want it, this is the reality that we are facing in Lebanon, and it is not going to change. Because the northern part of Lebanon, where the Christians are unable to fight Hezbollah. They are unable to change the reality, and in fact, they are waging a war. A war when they are a losing war, when they have to stop at a certain point and say, okay, we don't have a president, we don't have a regular government. Let's, as I said earlier, let's try to reshape the future of Lebanon into creating a federal state. This would be the best thing, and Lebanon would no more be the Lebanon we know. In fact, it would be another Arab state, another Muslim state in the area, because Sunnis and Shiites would definitely mean that they are the majority. Definitely the majority, and they cannot accept anymore the dictate of the Christian Maronites. And this is why the things are going to change. And in fact, to the worst, if we have to consider ourselves, consider our interest in Lebanon.
It's unbelievable to see, Jacques, that really what you're describing isn't something new. We've seen this with Hezbollah all the way along, all through the process, with the assassination of Rafik Hariri in 2005. Hezbollah has been really closing its stranglehold around Lebanon for 30 years almost, and yet no one seems to be able to have identified exactly what you describe now, that this terrorist group backed by Iran with a declared goal of destroying Lebanon from within, is really undermining Lebanon, is starting wars with Israel, fighting on behalf of Assad in Syria, and yet the US administration, for example, carries on funding the Lebanese army to this day, and it seems that everyone is just trying to turn a blind eye to really to Hezbollah's aggression, not only towards Israel but internally as well, destroying Lebanon.
Yes, well, I mean, it's a pity. This is what's really happening on the ground, and the changes are felt very much lately. I mean, you could definitely, I mean, read newspaper that are Christian, or media that is very close to the Christian circles, and vice versa. Those who are close to the Shiites, to see that the contrast, the confrontation is so big that there's no way to bridge between the two parties. I mean, Samir Jarjar, the head of the Lebanese forces, is the arch enemy of Nasrallah. If he could kill him, he would kill him tomorrow. This would be this would be one of his definitely one of his targets. So Lebanon has no future as it was in the past. The famous national park of 1943 is dead. The Taif agreement of 1990 that has set a new repartition of power is dead. As you know, Lebanon doesn't have a president since October 2022. There's only a caretaker government, a caretaker prime minister, and nothing is. I mean, we have reached. I mean, the Lebanese have reached a situation where the army is being paid. The salaries are being paid by Qatar and by the U.S. government. I mean, this is incredible. You don't have an army like this, and I mean, they are not mercenaries. They are not working for the United States, but the United States has an interest in giving that money in order to maintain a power center that maybe in the future can be of a help and forsake some of the interests of the United States. This is the situation today. I mean, but Lebanon is full of stories. I mean, you talked earlier about the electricity crisis. Well, you know, Lebanon has four main power stations. Out of those four power stations, two are obsolete, are dead. And the last one, which was functioning, was Arani in the south, got stopped because there was no more fuel, no more diesel to feed its turbines. So I mean, the story is very simple. There was since the beginning of this century, there was no I would say no prospect of enlarging the electricity system in Lebanon. There was no project at all. All those power stations were built in the last century, and the last one in 2002. Now they work on heavy oil, and Lebanon, as always, wants to get this oil for free. So they began since there was a shortage in electricity, they brought two barges, Turkish barges, that provided for 25% of the electricity in Lebanon. So the citizens had to pay two bills, one for the Turks and one for the Lebanese electricity company. Now, in 2021, the Turks realized that the Lebanese were not paying them their dues, and they owed them $150 million. So they took the barges out of the area, and Lebanon was left with less 350 megawatts, 25% of the production of electricity. So the Lebanese looked at other places, and they found that Algeria was the one that could provide for diesel. So they went to the Algerians, and Algerians agreed to give them for very cheap price diesel for the turbines. And what happened is that at one of the occasions, a sample was taken and analyzed, and it was a sample that they found out that the diesel was not exactly the one that they had asked for with specifics, and stopped paying the Algerians. They owe them $150 million. So they turned now to the Iraqis, and the Iraqis accepted to give them 100,000 tons of fuel every month. And but the Iraqi says, okay, you don't have money, you don't have the dollars to pay us. Pay us in Lebanese pound. So the Lebanese wanted to be very clever. Instead of paying
Like you've gone on to
the
mute for a
parity of
second.
the dollar in Lebanese pound, which was at the time 1,500 Lebanese pounds for $1, and today is 97,000. So how can you pay this bill? And they remained owing the Iraqis $1,500,000,000. And the Iraqis stopped shipment of the diesel. And one other thing, the diesel of the Iraqis was so heavy that it didn't fit the turbines of the Lebanese electricity power station. So they had to take the diesel from Iraq, sell it to a third party, and import from somebody else the fuel for their turbines. You know, incredible stories. And now again, Algeria has provided 30,000 tons for the Zahrani or the Dir Ammar, one of the two stations, for free with no money. I mean, and a sample was, imagine, a sample of this fuel was taken to Abu Dhabi to be analyzed there to see if it fits the Lebanese turbines. I mean, this is, incredible story, electricity. And today, with 30,000 tons, it gives you exactly 2 hours of electricity a day. This is it. This is what we have, and all the rest, as you said earlier, generators. And where do you get the fuel for the generators? Smuggling, where? From Syria.
It's incredible when you describe such a failed system, such a failed country that is still managing to carry out really quite substantial infrastructure projects, digging tunnels to connect the west to the east, the north to the south. And it seems that there is money running around in Lebanon, but it's just not getting to the right people. It's not getting to the people who actually need it, but rather is being focused on terrorism, developing terrorism, and the attack on Israel.
Moise, you have to remember something. You know, I lived in Lebanon. I grew up in Lebanon, and I experienced, anti-Semitism certain from the Christians. Not so much from the Muslim, but from the Christians. Now, remember, from 1982 to 2006, Nasrallah, Hezbollah, was the champion of the Lebanese. He had succeeded in fighting the Israeli presence in Lebanon. He had succeeded under pressure to force Israel to withdraw from Lebanon in the year 2000, and he just said that he was the one who did that. And in 2006, he managed to survive a war with Israel, and all this was hailed in Lebanon. Everybody was, in fact, hailing Hezbollah as a Lebanese patriot, as a Lebanese resistance movement. And now they are paying the price of that. They have let him grow. They have let the monster grow. And the monster now is turning against its masters.
When, Jacques, you mentioned this really previously. When was the last time there was any type of real population census taken in Lebanon? 1 in 5 people now in Lebanon, as you said, is a Syrian refugee. The numbers and the percentages of the population, whether they be Muslim or Christian, is up for grabs. UNRWA tells the world that there are 450,000 Palestine refugees in Lebanon, when really there's only about a maximum of 120, 130,000. Everyone, the smart money seems to have left, and what you're left with is a group of people that's very, very difficult to define. And so moving forward, if you say that the Taif is dead, the original 1943 agreement is dead, how can they move forward now if there's no real basis on which to make decisions? Hezbollah threatens the Christians. You're a much less of the population than you think you are. They say that we have a bigger part of the population. Where is there any way out of that?
Look, the only census that counts in Lebanon is the census that was conducted in 1932. So all those who have been living and dying since are still present. You know, on the election lists of 2022, my brothers, my dead brothers, were still living there. So,
Amazing.
I mean, I am still on the list, even though I left Lebanon 50 years ago. So nothing has changed. I mean, for those who are Lebanese and not, I mean, most of the Jews were not Lebanese. I mean, the citizens, they were refugees coming from Syria and Iraq and other places. But all those who are Lebanese are still on the list. You don't change that. You don't change that list, and this is the sacrosanct list that prevails in Lebanon, and this is what the Christians are asking to honor the 1932 census, and for them nothing has changed. Now, you're talking about Lebanon. Lebanon has a lot of areas that are unknown to the commoner. Okay, I'll give you an example. You have Palestinians since 1948 in Lebanon. They are forbidden to work in 95 professions in Lebanon, including doctors, including the nurses. 95% the professions are out of they cannot do it at all. Now, looking for the Syrian refugees, they know where they are. They know where they are, and for the last 7 years, no school has been offered to any of those the Syrian refugees, and they live in areas. Let's say in Baalbek, the governor of Baalbek has issued a regulation asking all Syrians to remain home after 7 o'clock in the evening. He has even regulated how much money they can earn a day, $1.5. This is what's going on. Lebanon has a very special regime. It is called kafala. Kafala means that when you have a foreign worker coming to work in Lebanon, in your home or in your mansion, whatever, or in your workplace, you take his passport, and he has to give you a kafala, I mean a guarantee that when he has to leave, he has to pay you back. And this never happens. The passports are torn, the passports are thrown away, and those people are just are in Lebanon, undefined. Nobody knows exactly what to do there. This is Lebanon as it should be known, and this is not the Lebanon that we think about. Oh, we think about Lebanon, the Switzerland of the Middle East. We think about restaurants, about the hotels, about casinos, and so this is very limited. This is very limited. All the rest are people who are suffering.
We're talking about most people. I think their impression of Lebanon is Lebanon of the early 70s, when it was really the Riviera of the Middle East, and it did have that potential. And before it really spiraled downwards into the sectorial violence, Muslim, Christian, civil war, the PLO had a big part to play in that as well. Turning all of southern Lebanon into Fatah land and then running off into Beirut and I'm sure that most people will remember the pictures of Yasser Arafat fleeing Beirut in 1982. This has been a war-torn country for so long, and nothing seems to be changing around it. No one seems
Boys,
to be.
have you had the chance when you were in Lebanon to go to the mountains, to go to a forest? You wouldn't hear a bird. There's not even one bird in Lebanon. They kill them all. They are eaten by all the Lebanese. This is the country. You don't have a house without at least 2 rifles. This is Lebanon. I mean, we think that we're talking about civilized people. They are civilized in their own way. They speak well. I mean, they dress as Westerners. They have even a tie and a jacket. I mean, but they are barbarians. Believe me, they are barbarians.
They're not Westerners. They're very much Middle Easterners, and not the best part of the Middle East in any way, shape, or form. And so going back to Hezbollah, what is I understand and appreciate, and I don't underestimate Hassan Nasrallah for 1 minute, and I understand his drive to turn Lebanon into another province of Iran. is that it seems to me that it's something that he is implementing slowly, but ever so surely. And soon we're going to see Iran instead of Lebanon.
When you land in Beirut, the first picture that you see outside the airport is a huge portrait of Khomeini. And then you have Khamenei, and you have the Iranians and all those heroes that were killed by Israel. This is you spoke about Fatah land. This is Iran land. This is Iran. In fact, I mean, there are places where in Baalbek, they speak Iranian, they speak Persian. And this is Lebanon has been transformed by the presence of Hezbollah, by the presence of the Revolutionary Guard, who are there as advisors and as participate in the build-up and in the training of Hezbollah. I mean, Hezbollah has been nurtured by Iran and I mean, pampered by Iran. And this is what we are seeing the result of it today. And this is why the confrontation with Hezbollah is, I mean, something that we cannot escape. We cannot escape because the ideology of Hezbollah basically is how to eliminate the state of Israel. It's part of the axis of evil that is led by Iran, and the vision of surrounding it and suffocating Israel in 7 fronts is the idea of Qasem Soleimani just before dying, and he had devised this with Hassan Nasrallah. And when we were hearing last year Nasrallah just giving us the signaling that this was about to come, that the hour clock was beginning to tick, we thought that he was talking about nonsense. And in fact, no, he was thinking about the beginning of the end of the state of Israel, which in his eyes should be in 2030. Not very far from today, but this is the trend, this is the movement, this is the direction, and we have to be very aware of this, that this is his ultimate goal.
I think that there's a common denominator, Jacques, between the Western approach to the Middle East as regards both Hamas, the Palestinian terrorists, and Hezbollah. This idea that if we just ignore them, maybe they'll go away, maybe they'll reform their ways, maybe they'll become enlightened and become just like us Westerners. But that's not true. And so that whole policy of placating the terrorists, it exploded in our face on the 7th of October. And it appears that that's the trajectory that we're going on also with Hezbollah. But at the same time, we're hearing those same calls for restraint that we heard as regards Iran, restraint as regards Hamas in the Gaza Strip, and restraint even visit after visit of President Biden's special envoy Amos Hochstein to Lebanon to in some way placate the terrorists and trying to persuade them to adopt really what is a Western idea of a political solution, and that's completely failing. When did that approach change?
In my view, the US is wrong in interpreting the reality of Lebanon. And so are the French, and so are the Europeans. The French are attached to Lebanon since the 16th century. Okay, they have a soft spot for Lebanon. They think still that Lebanon is the Christian-dominated state, which is not the case today. They flirt with Hezbollah all the time. The services, the spy agencies of the French flirt all the time with Hezbollah. They speak with Hezbollah, and I mean it's a matter of fashion today, as it is with the Palestinians. You put that kafia around your neck and you become. I mean this is fashionable. So it is fashionable to fighting the Jews, because Israel after all is a Jewish state, and it's not something that we like. I mean let us not forget the basic of anti-Semitism, that the fact that they don't recognize that we have a right to exist and we have a right to defend ourselves. Now, what do they think? I mean, if you get a slap on your face, you turn the other cheek. Well, this is not our religion. This is not our religion. I mean, this is the Christian way of looking at things. It's not the Jewish way to look at things. Eye for an eye, and teeth for a teeth. This is what we deal for, and this is what we are bred again. And this is not accepted by the world, unfortunately. Unfortunately, because they are living in romantic areas. They are living in romantic resistance. When Hassan Nasrallah speaks about himself as being the Lebanese resistance, well, everybody thinks about resistance, Mitterrand, you know, the French fighting the Nazis in the Second World War. No, but this is not the case. This resistance, they even stopped calling it Lebanese resistance. They called Islamic resistance. What do you mean Islamic resistance in a state where 1/3 of your population is Christian? And this is one of the items that is dominating the Lebanese scene. How can you present yourself as Islamic resistance, whereas you forget 1/3 of your population is Christian? This is impossible. So, and this situation is I would say the West prefers not to speak about, prefers to look at how do you fix the area in order to reach an arrangement in Hochstein while he was in Lebanon. This is according to the Hassan Nasrallah. Told them stories about how much gas they will get in Block 9 if they reach an agreement with Israel on the maritime border. Well, Block 9 is empty. There's not even one drop of gas there. And the Lebanese are mad at Hochstein. Why? I mean, and now he was selling an idea of deploying 15,000 soldiers. Lebanese soldiers on the border with Israel. I asked myself, where do you find 15,000 Lebanese soldiers? Where can you find those and deploy them in an area that is Shiite dominated? And an area with this Shiite dominated, you cannot bring Christian battalions, you cannot bring Christian brigades or Sunni brigades. You have to build on Shiites. And this is 15,000 is impossible to find. It'll take you 20 years to build, at least 20 years if you succeed in recruiting the people, because nobody wants to go to the army when you get the same salary from Hezbollah with much more advantages.
Jacques, is there a positive note that we can leave our audience with of what's going to happen with Lebanon? Maybe the best thing for Lebanon is this war with
Israel. The best thing for Lebanon is Israel. The best thing for Lebanon is Israel. And the fact that, I mean, Hezbollah Nasrallah in his last speech asked the Lebanese to go back to their homes, which means from his point of view, the vengeance on Fuad Shukr has ended, and this is another chapter. Let's forget it. Let's go back to normal, meaning war of attrition, which means that he understands very well the language of weapons, the language of strengths. And if we don't exert this language of strengths with Hezbollah, then I think that we have to take our luggage and leave this country, because this is the next target of Hezbollah. The next target is how to bring a disaster on the state of Israel, how the countdown of the existence of Israel has to begin, and this we have to be very much aware of.
I think this is something quite harsh to leave our audience with, but that is nonetheless the reality that Hezbollah is dragging Lebanon into a war which they're going to lose, despite all the bravado and great declarations of Hassan Nasrallah. And the world is looking on and is sadly not doing enough, and is going to allow Lebanon, in the same way as it allowed the Gaza Strip to be dominated by genocidal terrorists and then sink into this disaster. It's allowing Lebanon to be drawn into that same situation. Jacques, thank you very much for joining us. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of our time. To our audience, thank you again for joining us. We will be back with you again next week. In the meantime, keep safe, everyone. Shabbat shalom.
Very much.